So a friend of mine had just gone through a breakup, right? She was with a guy that was obviously not any good for her. And I'm talking to her and I'm asking her, we're having a discussion and I'm asking her, why did you even end up with that guy in the first place? Like that guy was horrible for you. What did you see in him? Right? What did you see? What was it about him that when you first met him, um, made you attracted to him? And what she said was, she said, when I met him, the guy had potential. That's the word that she used. He had potential, right? Potential means future. That's what potential means. So when somebody says this person has potential, what they're really saying is this person has a future, right? This person has potential means this person has a future. It's no different from like investing in a business, for example, right? Why did you invest in the business? Well, the business has potential, right? Which is another way of saying the business has a future, right? That's the word that she used. This guy had potential, right? In other words, there's an element of future involved in the art of seduction, right? It's actually a myth that a lot of people that are very good at seduction have to be good looking, right? Some of the most famous seducers are not necessarily good looking. What they're very good at is that they have a very intimate relationship with the future. They understand that seduction requires a possibility. You have to share possibilities with the person in the future, right? A good seducer is somewhat like a fortune teller, right? A fortune teller is able to paint pictures in your head, right? In your mind, right? They have to sell you the possibility. So what they're selling you is sort of like a commercial of the future, right? A commercial of the future is where all the magic happens. That's how seduction is done. It's a promise of salvation or of a utopian experience in the future, right? A seducer has to plant seeds and pictures in your head in order for a seduction to take place, right? Aristotle said, the soul never thinks without an image. The soul never thinks without an image, right? People's decisions are based on the mental pictures in their head. They have to be able to see it, right? And sometimes they'll tell you that directly. They'll tell you, oh, I just don't see that happening. Or like, oh, I could totally see that happening. I could totally see you doing that, right? But it requires a vision to be in their imagination first in order for a seduction to take place, right? They have to sell you the fantasy. And it doesn't matter what the fantasy is or how the fantasy is going to happen. It's when the fantasy is going to happen, right? It's not happening now, so it has to happen in the future, right? Politicians do this all the time, right? Seduction just doesn't happen in romantic relationships. It happens everywhere in business, politics. Politicians will promise you salvation. They'll promise you heaven in the future, right? They're pandering to your needs, right? In the future, you vote for me, and in the future, you're going to get your perfect life, right? It's a form of seduction. Seduction only happens when the person thinks that whatever it is that they need, the experience that they're craving, is in the future. You really have to understand seduction to really appreciate it for what it is, right? A lot of people don't really understand what seduction is. The easiest way to describe it is when a person is present, like in front of you, versus a person that's absent. They're not in your presence. They're not in the same room with you, right? So if there's a person in front of you, right? If they're physically in front of you, that's called attraction. You see them, right? And you're attracted to them, right? You're attracted to the person in front of you. Now, when that person leaves and you're still thinking about them in your head, that's seduction. Seduction happens when the person is no longer there, right? That's a good rule of thumb. If the person isn't there in front of you and you're thinking about them, that means a seduction has taken place, right? You're still thinking about the person, you're daydreaming, right? And it's not a form of manipulation or like emotional coercion. It's just the person has planted a seed in your psychology, right? They're in your head and you're able to fantasize about them throughout the day, right? So you have to ask yourself, how is it that people are able to do this? How is it that some people are able to seduce other people easier than others, right? The main ingredient, the key ingredient in seduction is imagination, right? A person with a high level of imagination is easier to seduce than a person who's not imaginative, right? A person who has a lot of time in their hands, who has a lot of imagination, is very easy to seduce, right? Because they have the space, the mental space and the time to think about the fantasy, right? The imagination is pretty much the battery on their back. That's the key is imagination. A person who doesn't have an imagination is not as easily seduced, right? There's other ways, but imagination, that's your bread and butter. That's the key to the castle, right? You have to be able to see a commercial of the future in your head, right? We do this all the time, right? When you meet someone for the first time, you're you're sort of dating, or maybe you're going through a transition where you're not really friends but you're not a couple either, you're sort of like in between. You think about the person all the time, right? You think about it and it becomes like a commercial of what life could be like if you're with this person, right? It requires imagination, right? It requires a vision for the fantasy to be there. Now, um imagination is pretty much like the fertilizer, right? The fertilizer in seduction is imagination. Without that, it's very difficult to do. And you have to you have to cater to the person's needs, right? Whatever that person is lacking, that's what you should be offering. Okay? So, um a lot of people, for the most part, people don't really count their blessings. What people do is they count the things that they don't have, right? That's how seduction happens. You need to understand what it is that the person doesn't have in order for you to give them a glimpse or a modicum of possibility that you can offer that. And then their imagination does all the work, right? It's like their imagination is your employee, right? They're working for you, right? Because they think, oh, I'm going to get whatever it is that I'm craving or repressing in the future through this person, right? But it only works when you understand what their unmet needs are, okay? Like, for example, when people give a compliment, people tend to compliment other people's best features. So when you see like a beautiful woman, right? And you say, oh my God, you're so beautiful. She's probably heard that a million times. Okay, she's heard that a million times that it goes in one ear and out the other, right? There's no shock value in that. It doesn't pull any emotional strings. It's just she's heard that a million times, right? But that beautiful woman, she has an insecurity. Everybody has insecurities, right? Men have insecurities, women have insecurities, everybody has insecurities. If you compliment that woman's insecurity, it cuts a little deeper. She's gonna feel that a lot more than if you were to just say, oh my God, you're so beautiful, right? It has to be a good compliment comes from you complimenting that person's insecurity because it's more meaningful, right? Now, you might not know what that person's insecurity is. So if you are gonna compliment someone, you should do it. Your compliment should be something that is highlighting something that's not easily replicatable. You can't duplicate. Replicatable. I don't know. Is replicatable a word? I don't know. Duplicate. You should compliment something that it's not easy to duplicate. So if you say, "Oh, I like that. I like your pair of jeans," whatever, and that pair of jeans is a carbon copy of everybody else who's wearing the exact same pair of jeans, right? That's not an insightful compliment, right? Oh, I like that shirt you're wearing, and everybody else is wearing the same shirt or something similar. Doesn't mean anything, right? It has to be something that's unique to the person, right? There is no emotional coercion or manipulation, right? Just be authentic. If you're gonna give a compliment, give an authentic compliment. Don't do it to manipulate or try to trick somebody into thinking something that, you know, coercion, emotional coercion. Don't do that. You're gonna compliment somebody, be authentic, right? And do it in such a way where whatever it is that you're complimenting is unique to them, not something that's easily duplicated. All right. So if you are gonna do that, the value of that compliment is gonna skyrocket. Those are the keys to the castle, right? It has to be something that they're gonna feel customized to themselves, right? You have to speak their language, right? And their language means you have to be in their world. You have to understand what they want, what their insecurities are, what it is that they're lacking in their life, what is that mental imagery that they're gonna wanna hear or see or visualize, right? What is it that's so unattainable, like the forbidden fruit, right? So you have to, you know, as much as it pains me to say this, a good compliment means you have to pander to their ego. You really do. But again, just be unique about it. Be authentic. At the end of the day, it is what it is. It's gonna be what it's gonna be, and that's life.